Thank you very much, Vincent. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at there. Can everyone hear me? Are we good? So listen, I'm a very interactive presenter. So if you're muted and Carl allows you to unmute, feel free to unmute. I'm going to have some questions and stuff. Thank the It Takes a Village team for having me here today. That muted me automatically somehow or another. So hopefully, you're looking for those lessons either for yourself or that you can carry on with your children for whatever you're dealing with. But most importantly, to arm ourselves and our children, right? One of the things that I love David, and going after David's rough for me, but that's okay. Great job, David. And Vincent mentioned to it, right? Our children are looking on, guys, right? They are looking at us and they are looking to figure out what do they have to do in the future. Now, my topic today, simply put, is money. And although I'm sure many of us agree that money's not the granddaddy of all things that we should be concerned with, right? I'm sure we would also agree that by having money in our possession, right, sure helps eliminate some of those stressors that have us all going, right? So I want to start with a quick story, right? Story of a young girl, early age. This young lady showed a lot of promise in a variety of areas. This particular young lady had an attraction to music, okay? Her parents were hardworking parents. They were educated. They had both grown up in hardworking families, living paycheck to paycheck. And so they too learned how to manage their money from that family and lived a life very much like their parents did, living paycheck to paycheck and never really getting ahead in their life, right? And they wanted to encourage their daughter to pursue their passion, to pursue that music career and achieve the things that she wanted to achieve. And but quite honestly, even after visiting, with mentors and coaches and trying to pursue that and look at how they could help her, right? They knew that financially it wasn't going to be possible. I mean, the reality is that it was going to push their finances to the limit. Over a couple years of entertaining the idea, the little girl really grew to have some anxiety of it, even trying new things, right? Or proposing new things to her mom and dad. And eventually, there was some depression that set in because, well, she wanted to pursue her passion and she was being forced to pursue math and English and things that really didn't speak to her, right? And we all know sometimes how that can turn out. And the conclusion was at some point that mom and dad had to sit down with that daughter and speak to her about the reality of where their finances were and things like that. And that those coaching and mentoring lessons in the music industry or music field probably would never come. Now, listen, we'll come back to that story, but I got to ask, I mean, how many of you guys can relate to that, right? We don't want to tell our children no at no means, right? So let me pull up my presentation. I'm unable to share at this point. I know Carl's working on that.
So, yeah, because you're set up as a co-host. Let me look.
So while he's working on that to get my screen shared, guys, I want you to think about something, right? Think about if you've got a piece of paper in front of you or a pen or something, right? Write down on your piece of paper, right? What are the top 3 dreams, right? Dreams that you have for you and your children. What are the top 3 dreams that you have for you and your children, right? And
check your share, Rodney.
And as you, perfect. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that, Carl. So as you think about those dreams, right? I want you to think about how many of those dreams that you can achieve without money, right? That's like a little bit of a gut punch to us, right? But that's the reality of what it is. And so often we've learned how to manage money from our parents who learned it from their parents and stuff. So I entitled today's discussion, Choosing Dreams Over Debt, right? And so if you've got those things down in your paper and you've come to the reality that, man, I do need to learn how to manage my money a little bit better, right? I need you to understand that when we look at the true disease in our financial lives that's keeping us from getting any better, and I said disease, right, in our financial lives, it's debt, guys, right? Debt is the one thing that if you eliminated it from your life, would probably allow you to accelerate your goals financially tenfold, right? Tenfold. When I say disease, I mean, you can have a savings discipline, meaning you're not able to put money away. And that's kind of like a muscle ache when you got the flu, right? You can experience protection issues with your life insurance or auto and home or health insurance even. And really, it's nothing more than having a fever, right? Because you can obviously change those things. But the deep down root cause of so many of our problems today is the fact that we have not learned how to manage our debt. Okay. So think about that. If we look long term over the statistics that are out there, right? 45% of all workers have less than $25,000 in their retirement, guys. All generations. It's not just baby boomers and it's not just the Gen Zers, right? Everybody in between is stressed because of money. I read a statistic last week that said 53% of Americans alone have anxiety just to talk about their money, guys. Right? And I don't want my children, and I'm sure you don't want your children having to worry about money. And I mean, paycheck to paycheck. And granted, wages haven't went up that much, but we have to learn to manage the pot of money that we have before God's going to give us any more, right? So 40% of Americans said they could, have less than $1,000 put away for an unexpected expense, like a blown tire or something like that. Average credit card balance, almost $6,200. $750,000, and this is just in the United States, guys, $750,000, right? Personal and business bankruptcies in 2019. Raise your hand if you think that's going to be worse coming out of COVID, right? That's what we're dealing with. And mainly it's because when we think about when we went to high school, right? How many of you guys were taught how to build wealth in high school? How many of you guys were taught how to get ahead financially? All right. So we need to understand that ideally we don't know the rules to the money game, right? We don't know the rules to the money game. So much like COVID, right? If we understand the fact that we've got to wear a mask and we've got to wash our hands and we've got to sanitize and stuff like that, I think the rule of 72, right, is that basic sanitizing rule of life when it comes down to finances, right? So let's just talk about this rule of 72, right? Rule of 72 talks about how money can compound using interest, right? And David mentioned something about the bank and interest, right? Man, I'm going to tell you, David, you got to get rid of that bank analogy and put it into something different, right? And here's why, right? Rule of 72 says if I take 72 and I divide it by an interest rate, now I'm just going to use 3%, right? That means $10,000 invested at 3%. 72 divided by 3 is 24. That means it takes 24 years for my money to double once. Another 24 years later, it would double to 40,000. I've got something going on with my slide. The years is not coming up here, but trust me, that's supposed to be 48 years over there next to the 40,000 off to the left, guys. So this is impactful because we all have to realize, let's talk about checking and savings accounts today, because that's really where most people take their money to save it. Well, what kind of interest rates are we getting on checking and savings accounts? Anybody got any idea? The national average, I see somebody pointing down, right? The national average today is 0.09%, right? 0.09%. It would take us 800 100 years for our money to double once at that interest rate. But this is why we like it, right? The bank speaks of this magical word called guarantee. That's a guarantee, 0.09%. Well, the reality is what's the bank doing with our money while they have it? Well, they could loan it to people for like mortgages and things like that and maybe charge 3%. Or maybe you haven't done so well for yourself and you don't have a good credit history or a good credit rating. They're probably going to charge you more interest rate, which means now the bank makes even more money, even off of those people that are more destitute and can't afford for them to make more money off of them. And if they really don't care about us, right, the banks could take our money and invest it into the economy. Listen, guys, I know we get afraid, right? We get scared and we tremble a little bit because the market is going up and down and all around. And I'm gonna tell you what, that's the best thing the market could ever do. On average, the market, the Standard & Poor's 500, the top 500 companies in the United States has averaged 11.4%. That means if the bank would have taken your money and invested in it at 12%, 30, 40 years ago, right? The bank would have stood to make a large chunk of change while we are getting guaranteed 0.09%. And that's not even the worst of it. We're here to talk about debt today. Average credit card rates today in the United States is 22%. That same 22% on $10,000 would have stood to grow to over $139 million for the bank. Can we honestly think that there's a single bank that wants to help anybody get out of debt? They don't, right? They don't. So, you got to ask yourself, hey, do I live in a cash life cycle or do I live in a debt life cycle, right? Are your finances controlling you? Are you outspending your income? Are you borrowing to maintain the lifestyle you're living? Are you paying off one debt to accruing another? Imagine what your stress level would be like if you could eliminate those things, right? Or are you living a cash life cycle where you control your finances? You're debt-free. You're paying with cash instead of borrowing, right? You're creating investments and savings and building assets that are yours, not the bank's. So remember that little girl that I talked about earlier on that wanted to pursue music? Guys, that's my daughter. Right? 3 years ago, I came into this company and that's when I started learning these concepts, and they've made a big difference in my life, my family's life. They've made a big difference in the relationship that I've had with my wife, my children, my God, right? And I know that by teaching this to other people, they can make a big difference in their lives as well. My daughter right now is taking lessons with one of the best instructors here in Cincinnati, right? And she's online to graduate and she's doing great things in school. And her goal in life is actually to open up some music studio that provides therapy to struggling kids just like herself. So, I got to ask you, do you think living debt-free is a dream? I think David hit the nail on the head, right? Knowledge is nothing but knowledge. But the application of that knowledge is really what can change things, right? The application of learning how to become debt-free is what changes us, right? My degree in engineering, right, was a great love of mine, but I've changed that to helping people. And, my passion right now is teaching people simple financial concepts so they can get on track for financial independence as well, right? So that they can be on track to be debt-free. Your dream can start today. Your dream can start today. And with a complimentary financial needs analysis, we offer complimentary settings with all of our representatives, right? That can help you draw up a game plan that's going to lead you to achieving the financial goals that you want. so that you never have to say no to your children again. And guys, that's the best example that you can set for them, is showing themselves, right, how to live more and give more, right? Listen, I'm Rodney Chronister, guys. Contact me on social media, call me, my information. I know Carl had put it into the chat and stuff. We want to help you. We want to help you live a better life financially. We want to help you live a better life of freedom to do the things that you want to do. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great afternoon, okay?